Ghostly tales, yet mirrors of human life. Hey, everyone! Welcome to Encountering Chinese. Ghostly Tales from Liao Zhai. Today, I'm going to tell you a story called Lotus Flower Third Lady. In Huzhou, there was a scholar named Zhong Xiangrua. One autumn day, Zhong Xiangrua went to inspect his fields. Suddenly, he noticed that in the thick and lush crop of wheat, the stalks were swaying vigorously. Suspicion arose in Zhong Xiangrua's mind, so he crossed over the furrows to take a closer look. To his surprise, he saw a man and a woman engaged in an illicit encounter in the wheat field. Zhong Xiangrua smiled and intended to walk away. Unexpectedly, as soon as the man noticed him, he hastily fastened his belt in embarrassment and hurriedly departed. At this moment, the woman in the wheat field also sat up, and upon closer examination, Zhong Xiangrua found her to be exceptionally beautiful. Zhong Xiangrua felt an attraction towards this woman and briefly entertained the thought of approaching her for a romantic encounter. However, he quickly felt ashamed of his coarse thoughts. He cautiously approached her and gently caressed the woman while asking, "Is your secret meeting enjoyable?" The woman merely smiled and did not respond with words. Zhong Xiangrua moved closer to the woman, unfastening her clothing, and discovered her skin was as smooth as cream. He couldn't resist touching nearly every part of her body. The woman laughed and said, "You naive scholar. Do as you wish, why are you groping around?" When Zhong Xiangrua asked the woman for her name, she replied, "After this moment of affection between us, we will go our separate ways. Why bother with names? Do you think I want to stay behind and be praised for my chastity?" Zhong Xiangrua responded, "Engaging in such activities in the wild fields, under the open sky, is something only rustic villagers do. Even in our private encounter, we should conduct ourselves with dignity. How can we be so hasty?" The woman nodded in agreement. Zhong Xiangrua suggested, "My home is not far from here. Please come to my place and stay for a while." The woman replied, "I've been away for quite some time, and it might raise suspicions if I return home now. Coming to your house in the middle of the night should be fine." She then asked for detailed directions to Zhong Xiangrua's home and swiftly departed down a narrow path. At the midnight hour, the woman indeed arrived at Zhong Xiangrua's home. The two of them immersed themselves in passionate intimacy, deeply in love. They continued this way for a month, and astonishingly, no one knew their secret. One day, coincidentally, a visiting monk was staying at the village's temple. When he saw Zhong Xiangrua, he was amazed and said, "There's an evil aura about you. Have you encountered something unusual?" Zhong Xiangrua replied, "I haven't encountered anything at all." A few days later, Zhong Xiangrua suddenly fell ill without any apparent cause. Each night, the woman brought him the finest fruits to eat and provided him with tender care, as if they were a loving couple. However, after they lay down, the woman would always insist that Zhong Xiangrua engage with her intimately. Zhong Xiangrua, who was unwell, grew somewhat impatient. He began to suspect that she might not be human, but for the time being, he couldn't sever ties with her and had to allow her to leave. Zhong Xiangrua said to the woman, "A few days ago, a monk suggested that I was bewitched by a demon. Now that I have fallen ill, it seems his words might have come true. Tomorrow, I will invite him to come here and ask him for a protective incantation to ward off evil and misfortune." Upon hearing this, the woman's face turned pale, which deepened Zhong Xiangrua's suspicions about her. The next day, Zhong Xiangrua sent his family members to inform the visiting monk of the situation. The monk said, "This woman is a fox spirit. Her magic is shallow and easy to capture." So, the monk wrote 2 talismans, handed them to Zhong Xiangrua's family members, and instructed them. "Go back, place a clean altar in front of the bed, affix 1 talisman on the altar's opening. When the fox spirit leaps into the altar, quickly cover it with a basin and attach the other talisman on top of the basin. Then, place the altar in a pot filled with boiling water, and cook it over high heat. Soon, the fox spirit will meet its demise." The family members returned and followed the monk's instructions. Late into the night, the woman arrived, taking out golden tangerines from her sleeve, intending to inquire about Zhong Xiangrua's condition at his bedside. Suddenly, there was a whoosh sound from the altar, and the woman was sucked inside. Zhong Xiangrua's family members jumped up, covered the opening of the altar, and affixed the 2nd talisman. They were about to take the altar for cooking, but Zhong Xiangrua saw that the golden tangerines had scattered all over the floor. He remembered their past love and felt sorrow. Moved by his emotions, he quickly ordered them to release her. They removed the talisman and the basin covering the altar's opening, and the woman flew out of the altar. She looked disheveled, prostrated herself, and said, "My magic was on the verge of completion, but today, I nearly turned into ashes. You are a kind-hearted person, and I swear to repay your kindness." With that, she departed. After a few days, Zhong Xiangrua's condition worsened, and it seemed like he was on the verge of death. His family went to the market to buy a coffin for him. On the way, they encountered a woman who asked, "Are you servants of Zhong Xiangrua?" The family members replied, "Yes." The woman said, "Zhong Xiangrua is my cousin. I heard that he is seriously ill, and I wanted to visit him, but I couldn't due to some matters. I have a packet of magical medicine here. Could you please give it to him?" The family members accepted the medicine and returned home. Zhong Xiangrua suspected that among his cousins, there were no sisters, so he realized that this was the fox spirit repaying his kindness. He took the medicine, and indeed, his condition greatly improved. Miraculously, he recovered fully within 10 days. Grateful to the fox woman, Zhong Xiangrua prayed to the sky, hoping to meet her again. One night, Zhong Xiangrua was drinking alone inside his closed door when he suddenly heard someone tapping the window with their fingers from outside. He unfastened the door latch and went outside to see, and to his surprise, it was the fox woman. Zhong Xiangrua was overjoyed and held her hand in gratitude. He invited her to sit down and have a drink together. The fox woman said, Since our last parting, I've been troubled and couldn't find peace. I thought I might not be able to repay your kindness. Now, I've found a suitable match for you. I wonder if you can reluctantly accept it? Zhong Xiangrua asked. Who is she? The fox woman replied. That's not something you can know. Tomorrow morning, at around 7 or 8 o'clock, go to South Lake early. If you see a lotus-picking girl wearing a white gauze shawl there, row your boat quickly to chase after her. If you lose sight of her, go to the shore and find a short lotus stalk. It will be hidden under the lotus leaves. Bring it back home, burn the flower stalk with the flame of a candle, and you will obtain a beautiful wife and longevity. Zhong Xiangrua respectfully accepted the fox woman's guidance. Afterward, the fox woman said she had to leave, and Zhong Xiangrua tried to persuade her to stay, but she said, Since I encountered this calamity, I have gained a lot of insights. I know that I cannot bring hatred upon myself by sharing a bed with a man. Saying this, she bid farewell solemnly and departed. Following the instructions, Zhong Xiangrua arrived at South Lake and saw many beautiful girls in the lotus pond. Among them was a young girl dressed in snowy white gauze, with unparalleled beauty. He hurriedly rowed his boat to chase after her, getting closer to the young girl. Suddenly, he lost sight of the girl's whereabouts. He immediately pushed aside the lotus thicket and indeed found a red lotus stalk. The lotus stalk was less than a foot tall, and he plucked the red lotus and brought it home. Upon entering his home, Zhong Xiangrua placed the red lotus on the table and trimmed the candle wick, preparing to light it. When he turned around, he discovered that the red lotus had transformed into a beautiful woman. Zhong Xiangrua was both astonished and delighted, kneeling down in reverence. The maiden said, You foolish scholar! I am a fox spirit, and I intend to harm you. Zhong Xiangrua paid no attention to her. The maiden asked, Who taught you this method? Zhong Xiangrua replied, I could recognize you on my own, there was no need for anyone to teach me. So he attempted to grab the maiden's arm. The maiden slipped away effortlessly and transformed into a strange stone, about a foot tall, clear and translucent. Zhong Xiangrua then placed the peculiar stone on the table, lit some incense, bowed twice, and offered prayers. At night, Zhong Xiangrua locked all the doors and windows, fearing that the maiden might escape. When he checked in the morning, the strange stone had once again transformed into a gauzy shawl. Zhong Xiangrua could even smell the fragrance emanating from the shawl from a distance. Opening the neckline of the shawl, he realized that it still retained the softness of a woman's touch, as if it had just been removed. Zhong Xiangrua covered himself with the shawl and lay down. In the evening, he lit a lamp and looked back at his bed, only to find the maiden lying there. Zhong Xiangrua was overjoyed, but he was afraid the maiden might change again, so he begged earnestly before approaching her. The maiden, with a playful smile, said, You troublemaker! I don't know who blabbered, causing this crazy guy to pester me to no end. She no longer resisted Zhong Xiangrua. However, during their intimate moments, it seemed the maiden couldn't endure and repeatedly requested a pause, but Zhong Xiangrua ignored her pleas. The maiden said, If you continue like this, I will disappear. Afraid of her vanishing, Zhong Xiangrua finally stopped. From that day on, their relationship became harmonious and filled with deep affection. Zhong Xiangrua's wealth seemed to magically fill chests and cabinets, and he didn't know where it all came from. The maiden spoke sparingly and obediently in conversations, as if she were not skilled in verbal communication. Zhong Xiangrua avoided discussing her unusual origins. Later, the maiden became pregnant for over 10 months, and according to her calculations, she was about to give birth. She went into the room alone and instructed Zhong Xiangrua to close the door without knocking. Astonishingly, she used a knife to cut open her own belly and delivered the baby herself. She asked Zhong Xiangrua to tear a piece of cloth to wrap her belly. By the morning, the wound on her belly had miraculously healed. After another 6 or 7 years, the maiden said to Zhong Xiangrua, "I have repaid my past karma. Please let us part ways." Zhong Xiangrua, tears streaming down his face, replied, "When you married me, I was poor and struggling to make ends meet. It was because of you that I became slightly better off. How can you bear to suddenly say you want to leave now? Moreover, you have no family to return to, and our future child won't even know who their mother is. What a great tragedy that would be." The maiden also spoke with melancholy. "All gatherings must eventually come to an end, it's the natural order of things. Our son has the aura of fortune, and you will live a long life. What more could you ask for? My original surname was He. If you ever miss me, just hold on to my old belongings and call out, 'Lotus Flower Third Lady,' and you will see me." With that, she broke free, and as she left behind only one sentence: "I'm leaving." In the instant that Zhong Xiangrua gazed at her in astonishment, she had already flown high above his head. Zhong Xiangrua leaped up to grab her, but he only managed to grab one of her shoes. The shoe slipped from his hand and fell to the ground, turning into a strange red stone, even redder than cinnabar, and both inside and out were crystal clear like a piece of jade. Zhong Xiangrua picked up the strange stone and kept it. Zhong Xiangrua then checked the chest and found the white gauzy shawl that the maiden had worn when she first arrived. Whenever he missed the maiden, he would hold the shawl and call out, "Lotus Flower Third Lady," and the shawl would transform into the appearance of the maiden. Her joyful countenance, her smiling eyes and brows, all exactly the same as the maiden's daily appearance, except that she couldn't speak. In the story, when Zhong Xiangrua lived with the fox maiden, his health deteriorated. This is because in ancient folk tales, it was believed that some small animals, after transforming into human form, would use certain methods to absorb the spiritual energy from humans to enhance their own magical powers. Some malevolent spirits would even use this method to harm humans. Therefore, regardless of whether the spirit was good or bad, people in ancient times were very afraid of them. The fox maiden in the story had no malicious intent, she just fell in love with Zhong Xiangrua, stayed with him for a long time, and absorbed too much of his spiritual energy, which made him seriously ill. Alright. That's all for today's ghostly tale. Lotus Flower Third Lady. If you enjoyed it, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe. Please also encourage everyone to comment and share more. We'll see you in the next episode.